Hi, everybody. I am so excited that I get a chance to talk to Karen Mays and I. We've been wanting to come together and talk about her personal health journey. And I was honored to be able to walk alongside her from the beginning and really watch her blossom into who she is today. And a health journey is so much more than just the number on the scale. And so I'm excited for her to share a little bit about all of that and how she came to the decision to make change her health and how she has turned that around not only for herself but for her whole family. So Karen, why don't you share a little bit about what made you ready to
Mm.
make some changes in your health?
Um, Thanks. What made me ready? That's a good question. I was ready, but not sure what to do for a long time. I don't remember exactly how long, months anyway. And because I had gotten to my absolute biggest size ever, I topped out at a size 22 W, as you see it in the plus size section, and even those clothes were starting to feel tight and uncomfortable, and I was definitely uncomfortable. I'd always been bigger, fluctuating, throughout my adult life, but but that was pretty much my biggest. And I had had two kids. They're now almost 7 and 9 years old. At the time, my younger one was 2, and I just didn't have any energy, and my feet hurt, and my back would hurt sometimes, and my mental energy was really, really low. And I was not being the mom or the wife that I wanted to be. I just didn't have the energy to be that person. I was doing the best I could. And so I literally would wonder, what am I going to do? Because I had done a lot of other things before, and it wasn't that I couldn't lose weight. It was that I couldn't stick with anything at that point, and I didn't know how, even though I felt like I knew all the stuff, I didn't know how to assimilate all of it into a lifestyle for myself that would help me keep it off and sort of get out of that cycle I was in.
And had you tried a lot of different things before?
I mean, over my lifetime, yeah, I had done I had done Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig. I was doing intermittent fasting, and then just trying to, eat better, kind of thing, cutting out certain things. And Atkins, I did that at one point. So I was in my earliest weight loss efforts in high school. I remember using Slim Fast, and and I lost weight on all of those things. But I, would inevitably swing back the other way, to differing degrees. I look back at myself in college, with pictures in college. I'm like, I felt big and unattractive, but I'm like, oh, it looked pretty good. Too bad I didn't feel that way at the time.
We are always our worst critics, right?
Yeah, so I didn't know what to do. I started going to the gym. I started working with a personal trainer, and that did help a bit. It kind of elevated my mood, and I felt a little stronger. But the scale didn't budge. I remember weighing in with her the first time after we'd been working together for a couple of weeks, and she's like, didn't change. But I did feel better, and then it was around that same time that I happened to see a post that you put up on Facebook. And I thought, well, wonder what Nora's up to. I don't know. I don't know what this is. Maybe it's something I haven't tried yet. And sure enough, it was.
Yeah, well, and for those that don't know, Karen and I knew each other years ago when she was living in Los Angeles and I was here, and she's moved a lot of different places. So thank goodness for Facebook to bring us back together, and has blessed us both with being back in each other's lives. So I remember our conversation, our very first conversation that we had. That was almost 5 years ago, right? 4.5 years ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
And you weren't really sure, but there was some kind of like desperation that you were willing to give it another try.
Yeah.
right? Willing to give your health another try.
Well, I knew you, even though we hadn't spoken in a really long time, I knew you well enough that you wouldn't be, representing some kind of fad thing, which I was not interested in. And it really, I had given some thought to what I wanted. And I had come around to the idea of wanting something really structured, because I had been in all my efforts to do intermittent fasting and other things like that, was overwhelmed by choice. And I never had the confidence that I was doing it right. And so to have someone say, look, you're going to eat 6 times a day. It's really easy. We make it very simple. And I'm going to be here to answer questions and guide you along the way. That it was almost like an answered prayer. So I don't know if you knew at the time, but I knew I was going to do it when we talked that first time. I just, I wanted to check with my husband. So I did.
Well, and what I always say, it's the more support, the better. So definitely I always want people to check with the significant others in their life to make sure everybody's on the same page, and willing to support each other in that, because that's one of the number one things, and why coaching is so great, because you have that external support. That
Yeah,
you
I
need
invited him to do it with me too. So
Yeah.
that was in the back of my mind, because he we'd always tried to lose weight together, and we tended to lose and gain in tandem. And but he said, no thanks, you go ahead, but I'm going to do it on my way. And but fast forward a few months, he would come around.
Right. He was watching. He was intently watching and a little jealous as your body was shrinking in size and your self-esteem was blossoming, so that's great. Well, when you started your health journey, the number of wanting to lose 100 pounds is like a scary thing to even say, because having gone through many different types of things and gained and lost weight over and over again, it's almost, you sometimes lose belief that it can happen. So I don't really even remember if you were like, I want to lose 100 pounds at that point. I think there was a point where you just wanted to see progress, and know that it could happen.
So I remember I started off I didn't know what I weighed when I actually said this to you, but I had a sense, I guess. But now I know I started off at 270 pounds, and I knew that I would start to feel like myself when I got down to about a size 16, which would put me at around 220. So that was my first thing, yeah, I know I should lose more, I could lose more, but I'll start to feel like myself again. And that was the first thing that I sort of set my sights on. Yeah, because to think about anything more was too overwhelming at the time.
It is, yeah. And, as a coach, I always say, I believe in you. I know the process happens when people follow it, but the person on the other end doesn't have that same belief as the coach does.
Right.
So it is about setting smaller goals and maybe having the dream, the vision that more can happen, but you need to see a little proof first. So And that came very quickly. You systematically lost weight throughout your journey.
Yeah.
Each week. And not only lost weight, but you started to feel better inside and out, right?
Yeah, so I said all I would really mentally commit to was 30 days at the very beginning. It's like, I'm going to see, how it goes for 30 days, and really go all in. And actually Thanksgiving fell in my first 30 days. So I knew that was coming and that would be a bit of a hurdle. But it didn't, by the time I even got to Thanksgiving, I think I was like 10 days or 2 weeks in at that point. I started on November 9th, 2015. So I think Thanksgiving was about 2 weeks later. And I was feeling so much better by then. Like, I think it only took 4 or 5 days to start feeling lighter, smaller. Also, I remember one of the first things I noticed was I had a little more room in my feet, because my feet had been really swollen. And so that started to go down, and my feet used to ache when I would wake up in the morning and take my first few steps. And that I noticed probably around the 5th day that wasn't the case anymore. And and then my energy went up, and yeah, so I was, by the time Thanksgiving rolled around, I was like, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm feeling so much better. And why would I want to jeopardize that?
Hmm. Yeah, you did amazing. And I remember along the way that it was really important that we didn't focus on just the number on the scale or the inches lost or the clothes size. So one thing that was really tangible for you was that you set a goal outside of the scale and kind of outside of your body, meaning physically,
Yeah.
um, and that was important because that gave you something to shoot for, and it kind of gave you a timeline because you wanted to do it in a
Yeah.
certain time.
It worked out timing wise. Thinking back, worked out really well. I think it was probably around January, and um, I don't remember when it was exactly, but it was winter. It was the dead of winter. I remember that, and I think I said to you something like, it's going so well. The scale is like really cooperating. I feel great about that. But I did the math, and I'm still going to be going for a really long time. Like at the pace I was going and how much better I was feeling, I thought I'm going to be done in 3 months. But that wasn't the reality. Um, so so I said that to you, and you're like, it's, 10 pounds at a time. And then you said, well, and think about something that has nothing to do with the scale that you would like to do. And I thought, every time I would see somebody out in a kayak on the water, we used to live in Canada. We lived really close to Lake Ontario, and I would see people out on the lake. And it wasn't that I wasn't able to row a kayak at the time, but I wanted to do more. I wanted to feel really strong and capable of doing that. And so I started Googling and finding people around my area who kayak, because it's not something we really have done in my family, and very much of anyway. And I found a local group that did a big, it's a 1-day trip across Long Island Sound from a town called Norwalk across to a certain point in Long Island. That I think it's 14 miles round trip, but it's pretty strenuous. And so I reached out to her. We had a conversation, and she's like, oh, great. I'm so glad you're interested. She's like, I have a couple of kayaks to rent if you don't have your own. What's your height and weight? And I said, and I just kind of paused, and I told her. This was an email, actually. So I sent it to her in an email. And she's like, well, I don't have a boat that I think you'll fit into. I said, well, give me a couple months. I'm on a journey. Let's see where I am in April or May. And sure enough, by the time May came around, when we started practicing, the actual row across the Sound was in August. But she's like, you're going to have to work with me, so I know that you're, competent. I don't want to have to tow you all the way back. So I started with doing that with her in May, and slipped right into her little Eliza kayak. That came to be the one that I used all the time. And so that felt really good.
And was incentive to keep going, right?
Absolutely. And then I had that event in the Cross Long Island Sound row to train for and work on, and that was really, really motivating and fun. And I was doing something I love, being out on the water. So it really was great.
Yeah. So you lost over 100 pounds total.
Mm-hmm.
And how long did that take you?
So I have to look back at the actual date, but it was probably about 11 months, I think. I know by the time I was at 95 when I went to my first convention in July. So I think I probably hit 100 in August when I came back. Because I remember hoping I would hit 100 before I went to convention, but that didn't quite happen. But still, 95 is pretty good. So
Yeah.
so I hit the 100 probably in August. So what is that? 9 months? Wow, it's faster than I thought.
Yeah. And, I think when people begin a weight loss journey, they think it's just the number on the scale, but it's a journey, right? It's a process, and there are some ups and there are some downs throughout it. And you are somebody, out of all the hundreds of people that I've worked with, have really, you followed your system to the T. And there were moments that you planned, you made conscious decisions. I remember your birthday that year. You really wanted a piece of Boston cream pie.
Yeah.
and you did. You had a piece of Boston cream pie, and that was okay. You know that it's not about perfection, but it's really about progress.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't expect to go into a health journey and think that it's you're going to go from A to B with nothing in between. There are lots of processes, and even when you get there, right,
Mm-hmm.
it's still a journey because you're never in one spot. We're always growing and fluid.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it continues to evolve and change and all that.
Yeah. And I've seen you grow personally, you know, not just shrink in size. So what are the things that how you've changed and how you've developed personally throughout this process?
I guess it's fair to say I've sort of come into my own. My confidence definitely has gone up. And then, coaching itself has, I like being pushed out of my comfort zone. And so coaching, does that for me. And it keeps me, growing. It keeps there's always motivation to keep growing and reading and learning. And I learn from working with my clients. And so some of that has led to talking in front of people and doing things like that and doing Facebook Lives, things that are a little scary. And just sharing authentically and realizing that that's probably the scariest thing is to get to tell people that, yeah, I'm not perfect. It's not, one and done. There's no magic light bulb switch, not magic light switch that you're fixed and all of a sudden you don't have moments of eating out of emotion or things like that. So there's definitely been ups and downs of all different kinds, and even learning to be, I guess I was always entrepreneurial, but actually being an entrepreneur is scary. And so all of that put together, plus, but really it started with experiencing wins that I had never experienced before, that I had, I'd never shopped as a grown, even as a child. I don't think I shopped outside the plus or the larger sized department, very infrequently anyway. And so sort of having milestones like that, and then, having to get used to that this is real and it's something now to maintain and stay in process and all of that good stuff, so it's there's a lot to it. There's just as much to that part of it as there is to the weight loss, but it's all good. It's worth it. It.
Yeah, and learning to eat to live and not live to eat. We need food to live, so you got to learn to do that, eat and be healthy and make those choices.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing I want to talk about. So we know that people are 5 times more likely to succeed when they bring some friends along on their journey of health. And I know that there was a point where you decided to share your health journey publicly. And I remember the day that you did that, and you got so much love and attention on your Facebook post of just, this is where I am and this is what I've done. And I said, I think you've just extended yourself to help a lot of people. Are you ready? And you said, I think I am. And your husband was their first client as a health coach. So tell us briefly a little bit about how that was and where you think you'd be today if you weren't helping others.
So it was kind of a big thing because I had not said a word about it on social media or, my immediate family and people I saw all the time knew I was doing something, but I wasn't making a big deal of it. And then I read there was an article that came out by a woman, and I don't remember her name, but she had been a contestant on The Biggest Loser, and she lost a lot of weight in that process. And then she went home and she gained, I think, all of it back. And she wrote a very, very raw, real article about what that was like and where she was at that moment. And I really felt for her. And so that inspired me to turn around and share that, I was so glad that I had found something that was teaching me how to learn new habits, new lifestyle habits in my own fishbowl, in my own
Mhm.
environment. And because, you know, I say this to clients all the time, the one of the things we're trying to do is learn how to make different choices in the same old situations. We have birthdays, our birthdays and family birthdays all the time. We have vacations, we have stress, we have bosses who are not the best. We have all these things are not changing. So what has to change is us and the choices that we make in those situations. And so um, so yeah, I was really inspired to share that, and so I put that out there, and yeah, it was pretty awesome how many people were you know, saying congratulations and this is awesome, you know, really encouraging me. It felt great. And then when we talked about coaching, I said to my husband, like, you know what, I'm going to become a coach. And he's like, okay, I'll be your client. And I didn't expect that, because he'd said that he was, you know, really proud of me and all this stuff, but he had never said that he was thinking about that. And
Mhm.
so he was client number one, and client number two was my sister. And that was wonderful as well. She did not have as much weight to lose. She's someone that when I was like being healthy before, and we would go out to eat, I would, if I was feeling like being good, I would copy her order because she always ordered healthier than I did.
Mhm.
So so that was, you know, interesting and gratifying for me as a coach to see that you know, even someone who I regarded as making pretty healthy choices and just active and all that, really benefited from the program and from all the habits. And um, so that, you know, and then it kind of rippled out from there.
Yeah, such an amazing process. Well, you really, I've been watching you and you're like the caterpillar that turned into the butterfly. And it's been so amazing to partner with you and to continue. You know, we still have a coaching relationship because you are always my client first. And I'm honored to walk that path with you because, like we said, it's not a one and done, it's a process. And, but you really are in a beautiful place and helping so many other people do the same. And thank you for taking time out today to share all of it, and hope that the world out there got a glimpse of, you know, anything is possible when you're ready to make a decision and when you partner with the right system and structure and have the right support, um, and you are ready, you can do it.
Thank you, Nora, and thank you for all your coaching and mentorship. It's been really amazing so far, and I'm sure it will continue to be. And you have a great way of making tall mountains shrink. So I appreciate that.
Oh, of course. Thank you.